Hey, what's going on, guys? Kalamazi here, and tonight I want to talk to you all a little bit about Season 4 trinkets, where to spend dinars, trinkets meaning more so the trinket buffs that came in this week, and just where you should be standing, I guess, gearing-wise, heading into, I guess, week 3 of Season 4. Now, this week we have Faded Sepulchre. The first one's coming around. Week 1 was Nathria, Week 2 was SOD, obviously, and Week 1 brought your chance at Hymnal. Week 2 brought your chance at Shadowed Orb. This week brings your chance at Entumbra, which for the most part had been like the 3 big dog Dinar items that have been mentioned you want to purchase and target. Now, if you've acquired one of those already, hey, congratulations, you have other options, which we'll talk about here. But there is a unique, I will say now, it will vary for everyone what you want Dinar-wise, and maybe even Trinket-wise, looking at these sims with the large buff to Meat Hook and especially Enforcer Stun Grenade, based on what your character has, what its gearing is looking like. So the sims in this video, you should run your own, because I've seen a lot of variance in them, and you'll see in some of these sims, a minor change can make a very large difference. Now, that being said, if there's any weak auras or add-ons or profiles in the video you see, they are all indeed available to you guys for free on my Twitch. If you want to swing by and grab them, hang out, ask any questions during time, feel free to do so. Before we get too far in the video, I want to give one huge shout out to my patrons. Thank you guys a million times for all support on Patreon. Much love, dudes. Really appreciate it. If you're looking at supporting on Patreon, there should be a link up here as well as down in the video description below. So with that being said, let's jump right into the updated trinket sims and see where things are, because Shadowed Orb is still a good option for your on-use trinket, but grenades gained a lot of ground. Okay, so like I said, it is very, very, very important to run your own sims for your own character, because you will see right here with a very minor bit of tweaking when it comes to gearing, there can be a large difference when it comes to gearing as well. So this sim was run like 4 or 5 days ago on August 13th. This is before the actual trinket buffs came in. So this is a pre-buff stun grenade sim. Now, stun grenade has 89 verse right now at had 89 verse at 288. In game, it currently has 173 at 288. So that buff doubled the actual passive verse on it. It did not double the on-use effect, right? So the big thing here, my current sim with this actual gearing on right here, this gear might vary a bit, don't worry about that. What we're looking at is here. My current gearing or sim with this actual gear on is 17737. I took this exact profile, I copy and pasted from the raw input data and put it into a gear comparison sim today. So the exact same gear down to literally the enchants, the gems, I think everything pretty much is exactly the same, has changed. So my passive DPS has gone up by about 316. And Shadowed Orb has dropped off tremendously in value, right? Now here, Shadowed Orb is very high. It's about a 300 DPS gain at 304, which would put me around 18,021 DPS. A heroic one is 137 DPS and 17,875, but post-buff bomb is 1859, which you can see the orb stays at about the same threshold of damage pre-nerf or pre-buff from bomb. I'm going to call this bomb a million times in the video. It's a grenade, this general grenade bomb thing. This is what I'm referring to. Orb simmed 18,021 DPS here. Before the buffs came into this, it simmed 18,024 DPS here with an 18 DPS margin of error. So this has not changed. Grenade was buffed substantially. Now, the actual tooltip does not show the increased passive burst from 89 to 170, but it is there in the sims. You can see it up here. The tooltips will be fixed at some point. So grenade has gained a tremendous amount of value, right? So I ended up running some sims. Obviously, Orb is still pretty good across the board for Destro, Demo, and AF, but it lost a lot of value. Now, I was lucky enough to pick up an Orb from LFR. Somebody traded it to me. They're very kind. I haven't upgraded it yet. It's still LFR level. But I started running more sims, and people were coming into stream asking, why is Orb so good for me and so bad for other people? So I ended up getting this ring from the vault today, Logic Loop of Recursion. I ran this sim with the exact same gear, except for a ring swap to this. And this is the results that I got. Shadowed Orb Torment is now a 154 DPS gain. You can look at the gear right here, back and forth. It is the exact same gear, barring this ring. There is no set being broken. The gearing just the ring changes. This is a huge crit minor haste ring, and I'm going from a very large mastery minor crit ring. So I'm losing a lot of mastery and gaining a lot of crit, which you can see the shift here. My highest overall DPS output with this ring on, which is a lower eye level, this to be fair, but it's 1859. Looking at this, it's 18202, and the Shadowed Orb is actually higher sim-wise, at about 154 DPS, right? Compared to my 288 Enforcer Stun Grenade. And looking back at the previous sim, a 304 Orb is literally below my 288 Stun Grenade. So losing the big mastery on this ring ends up adding and swapping to this ring, ends up meaning that mastery is a more relevant stat for me. So Shadowed Orb is indeed good once again and better than Grenade. But I wanted to expand upon that, so I ran more sims playing the Mecha Gun ring. Now, once again, the Shadowed Orb at 304, sitting at about 18,223 here, sitting at 18,220 in this sim. So the exact same thing, basically, as a margin of error. Shadowed Orb is ahead of a 304 Stun Grenade. This is one you can get from the Great Vault by about 30-ish DPS, right? This is sort of hard to get. A 288 isn't that bad. You can put Valor into it, upgrade it. Not that big of a deal. But if I'm playing this ring, and long term, we know we want the Mecha Gun rings, right? We'll move whatever legendaries here to a different piece of gear. We want Mecha Gun rings long term. Even without having both them, Shadowed Orb's ahead by about 40-ish DPS. But Bomb gained a lot of value. And what this means is that whether, it's a bit ahead or a bit worse than, Orb here, Stun Grenade has become a very viable secondary option for your unused Trinket for Warlocks with this massive buff. Because previously, we didn't have a Ruby. We didn't have a cube even laying around. We had nothing. We literally had Orb from SOD, and that was it. We had Meat Hook, which wasn't terrible, but it wasn't the best. There's a Meat Hook sim here somewhere as well. But Shadowed Orb was like your really only good option when it came to equip trinkets, but that has changed. So Grenade, very solid option. It might change Dinar rankings, what you want to spend first, and it's farmable. An Orb, you have 3 or 4 shots if you're running LFR, Normal, Heroic, and Mythic, and that's basically it, barring getting it from your vault. So there's that. Now, I decided to expand upon it a bit more by actually playing the Mastery Ring here and running a huge sim as well. So I swapped back to this gear here, a heavier Mastery set. Lo and behold, the Stun Grenade once again has pulled ahead of the Shadowed Orb, albeit at a lower overall DPS. Due just the eye level on the Orb and things too, but also the DR and secondary stats. So my higher sim here, by about 70-ish DPS, is still favoring, once again, the Shadowed Orb with a non-massive haste-heavy ring. So, once again, TLDR, both Grenade and Orb are very good, but you can see the variance in these sims, right? You can see how important it is to run your own sims, because my character will not have the same gear as yours. So, now, moving on a bit here, I decided to sim a Meat Hook, because people were curious, right? Unfortunately, I played with the haste ring here, but unfortunately, Meat Hook is not looking to be the best. With the haste ring in this sim, it is about a 207 DPS loss over the Grenade at 288, with the Meat Hook being at 304, and unsurprisingly, Shadowed Orb is your best option here. And also, just to show that I did swap to the Mastery Ring and run the Hook sim also. Hook is about a 172 DPS loss, and just like the other sims we saw here, playing the large Mastery Ring devalues Shadowed Orb by a good bit. It makes it, like the Mythic one, about a 48 DPS loss, and it's all just grenades at the top, right? Looking at, once again, the Haste Ring sim here, which shows Orb being our best option, and then Hook being here, but Grenade being good as well. So for the 10th time, the big thing is that you still need to run your own sims. These trinkets will both vary in relevancy depending on your gearing for Demo, Destro, and Aft, but they're both good. And I'll be real, a flat, 175 verse is like a flat 5% damage increase. I'm at 8.5% verse right now. You just gain a lot of damage by playing the actual Stun Grenade. You just gain a huge amount of passive versatility, which is a flat damage increase, and the on use being 900 verse is it's pretty ludicrous. So now, like I said, we know that Mecha Gun rings are our end this year, so I wanted to move on and run an Orb sim versus a Bomb sim with Mecha Gun rings. So I had to move my actual Wilfred's to Bracers, so that's here, and I put Overclocking Bitband in every single sim here. Bitband, 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 and I simmed Shadowed Orb versus Stun Grenade at 304 and Stun Grenade at 298, and Shadowed Orb came out about 50-ish DPS higher. So you can see, it evens out a little bit, and once again, a big mastery piece and an off piece could change this for you, but they are both very close, and they are both very solid options. Now, there's also a question of, if you're playing Entumbra, does that devalue versatility a bit more? How does that look? Well, I ran the Entumbra sim too with the Bitband and everything else, and this is the Entumbra sim here. You can see the Orb basically here versus the actual Stun Grenade. Orb is ahead by about 200 DPS, both playing Entumbra at 311 and Forbidden Truth at 311, and having overclocking here and here with Grimveil Bracers having Wilfords on them. So long term, Mythic Shadowed Orb looks to be your better option. But Grenade is a very solid alternative when it comes to basically every kind of content, right? Orb is good across the board. Grenade is good across the board. Both solid 2-minute TDs. Grenade or Orb hurts you when you cast it, when you pop the actual cooldown for a bit, but it lasts a whopping 40 seconds compared to Grenade lasting 20, but being a huge damage increase, a huge DR for damage taken, and only being a 2-minute cooldown like Orb. So they're both good. Grenade is infinitely farmable too by running Iron Docks over and over. Now, I did run a couple Destro sims, I think, and one AF sim. I don't even know what this sim is, but we'll look at it. Listen, you can run your own sims for your own niche builds. I didn't run Neck for a Lord, AF, Drain Life, Malefic Wrath build on a Wednesday night. You can run that if you want. Have fun. I didn't run it. Destro single target. I just played Wilfords for this in a single target sim. 5 minutes. I actually threw Sigil in here too. That's a good option for Destro and things, depending on the profile. If you want to run Madness, go for it. I didn't run Madness. It's fine. Once again, do what you got to do. Shadowed Orb is ahead by about 7-ish DPS. They are very, very close here with a 2-minute Wilfred's profile. Both bringing that strong, just 2-minute damage with your Infernal, with Wilfred's, with everything, right? Sigil's right here. Now, if I run an AoE sim, however, Sigil is ahead by a pretty substantial margin because it's 1500 verse with more baseline int compared to, like, I mean, well, I guess int versus verse, but I mean, it's 942 on use verse versus 1500. So you can see in a 5-target, 40-second sim how Sigil will be very good, but you also have, you know, a use every 5 minutes versus every 2 minutes and every 2 minutes. So Destro, same thing. Orb, a little better than Bomb, but it is very, very close. Now, the Affliction sim, I ran Malefic Wrath. You can run whatever you want. No one's playing AF now, unfortunately, because it's not very good. But follow suit with everything else. Orb being about, 200-ish DPS better than Stun Grenade at 298, 304, and then 298 here. So, for the 10th time, it's important to run your own sims. Orb is still looking solid. You might get a sim with Orb being worse or better than Orb for you, but they are both good. And, like, overall, this is a win. Because, like I said, you can get Orb from SOD basically once every 3 weeks, unless you get it from your vault. They did add loot from every single raid to each vault now from the actual raid section. But it's hard to get an Orb. Not hard to get a Stun Grenade. You can go farm it infinitely at Iron Docks. So when it comes to Dinars, I finished my first quest today, which was kill 30 bosses and get your first coin here, Dinar, whatever you want to call it. I have one, so I can buy one item. Now, these vendors are next to the Great Vault. They will not spawn until you finish the quest and have an actual Dinar in your inventory. The second quest is bugged. It says defeat 20 bosses, but the actual tracking is for 15. There's a big difference here between these. I believe it's 15. It's probably going to be because it's giving credit for this, and the text might be off. It was 30, 20, 10 on PTR for this. The big thing here is that Nathria has 10 bosses, SOD has 10 bosses, and Sepulchre has 11. So that means if you're going for the first 30, you can miss one boss to get your first coin, and that'll be 30 out of 31 total. However, so let's say, for example, you're like me, you killed every boss so far, you got your first coin today, week 3, and you're going to be working towards second coin, you know, this week and next week. You can go in to Nathria next week with 1 kill if you kill every boss. Let's say you go in with 0. You get 10 kills in Nathria, so you're coming at 10 out of 15. Week 2, when SOD hits again, you can kill 5 bosses and get your second coin. And then theoretically, this should drop to 5 coins from what I've heard people talking about. So you can go kill 5 more bosses in SOD and loot your third item, or I guess trade for your third item in the same week. So next SOD, not this coming week, but the week after, should be double Dinar week, and that should give you a lot of targetable gear. Now, I've run a sim looking at what I'm looking at for the most part. Now, these guys also only sell weapons and trinkets, right? So here's the actual vendor from Castle Nathria. Hymnals here, these are all garbage. Hymnals there. Here we have Sigil. I mean, this is basically Sepulchre loot, and Tumbra, which is big, Sigil, and Offhand from Jailer. This is not bad either, but it's sort of, yeah, you know. And here is actual SOD with Ocular Gland and whatever else you want, Orb being here also, but nothing else besides weapons and trinkets. So the big ones for us, for Warlocks, have been Antumbra, which is here. Yeah, here. Kabbalist Hymnal, which is from Castle Nathria, from Sire of the Nathrius, and Shadowed Orb of Torment, which is the whole video has been about so far, right? Now, the big thing here is if you acquire one of these 3 pieces of gear, you can use these coins, these confounding antique ciphers for this and this for mythic, which make a token that upgrades them to heroic or mythic, right? So for example, I've acquired this Shadowed Orb. I'm going to use this or this on this at some point, so I don't need to buy this anymore. So my order of buying gear has typically, the order I've assumed I'd take is Entumbra, followed by either Shadowed Orb or Kabbalah's Hymnal. I was waiting to see where Trinkets landed in Sims with Grenade. Now, there are pretty solid equip options out there, like Solea's, like this if you have it, like Old Ooze is still good if you're playing Demo. If you're not playing Demo, other things are good too. Solea's, Scars, Eye of the Jailer Trinket, even KT Trinket, right? Like this or this. But like we said before, the big thing was there really wasn't any good unused trinkets. Bomb was like, Grenade's okay, and so was like Meat Hook, but they're not as good as, you know, a Shadowed Orb. But with that changing, at least for me, priority-wise, if I had not looted this orb at all, it probably would shift things for me a bit. So I'm looking at grabbing Entumbra number 1, followed by probably Kabbalah's Hymnal, and then Shadowed Orb, if I didn't have one laying around, which I do. Now, I've run some sims looking at my own gearing, putting aside the fact that I have an orb and I still need to maybe buy one or upgrade one. This is where my character currently sits. Like I said, I'm looking at, even before, number 1 Entumbra, which, keep in mind, you need an offhand for Entumbra. It's a one-handed weapon, so you'll need an offhand for that. But Entumbra followed by Hymnal, and then Shadowed Orb, and 2 and 3 being in, you know, probably an order of Orb versus Hymnal. It's like Entumbra, Orb, and then Hymnal. But with Bomb being buffed, at least for me, and probably for the people who are trying to obtain it relatively easily, it devalues Shadowed Orb, right? Like here's my overall sim. So I'm sitting here roughly right now. It's a bit low DPS wise, but so I simmed an Entumbra on heroic with a heroic offhand. It's a 41 DPS upgrade for me, which is I'm not really going to do much with, right? Here's my heroic orb. I'm playing the haste ring here as well, so it's, you know, a bit more valuable in the mastery ring. Here's mythic orb being about a 201 DPS upgrade. Here is heroic hymnal. This is a 0 hymnal stacked sim as well. If there's 4 people in the group, you're going to gain a lot more value, right? But here's your hymnal, sitting at like 205 DPS. Here is a mythic Entumbra with a heroic jailer offhand, or this is like a normal jailer offhand. I think this is what I have now. It's like from old mythic jailer. It's just sort of there, right? But you can see, even with like this eye level and this being lower than my staff, Entumbra at 311 versus with this at 285 versus a 298, it's still a 217 DPS gain. Here's mythic hymnal, and here is mythic Entumbra with mythic forbidden truth at 611 DPS. Now, like I said, if you've gotten lucky enough to obtain either an Entumbra or an orb or a hymnal, you will have like 3 coins to play with like everybody else, but you don't need to buy one of those items, or 2, or however many you've obtained. So there's other things you can buy. Now, for example, I'm looking at Entumbra number 1, if I don't loot it from raid tomorrow, followed by hymnal, and then probably grabbing a mythic forbidden truth from this guy, because I mean there's a limited amount of items you can buy, right? I don't really care much here. What I really care about is like filling in that good main hand offhand, and Entumbra is massive, but this is 285, so I mean we're gonna buy this. And then what else do we even really buy? Like Scars can be okay maybe down the line. If you get lucky and get 2 things, you have to buy this one thing, sure, buy a Scars and have fun. But my priority list right now, like, is going with the update to Grenade, is Entumbra, followed by hymnal, followed by jailer offhand being forbidden truth, and I mean that's 1, 2, 3 because I have actual orb here. If you don't, I probably grab orb over the actual offhand, but either way, you can fill in the gaps for your own character. But this trinket buff has changed a lot of things, because Grenade's not too hard to obtain. If you got a piece of gear, forbidden truth's pretty good now. It was good in the first place, but you know, that extra Dinar you have laying around could be relevant. I'm not saying this is like the end-all be-all. If you can't buy it and make it at 311, there's plenty of offense at 304 from other bosses or Mythic Plus you can play too. But if you've looted an item that you were going to buy, you got an extra Dinar laying around. And if you didn't loot an orb, well, I mean, you can still farm Iron Docks. So if you're trying to min-max things, what I'm going to do this week, we have killed every difficulty but Mythic Rygalon at this point. I'm going to see if I loot a Mythic Entumbra from Rygalon. If I don't, I'm buying Entumbra at number 1, and that is where this Mythic token right here is going to be going whenever I kill 7 more bosses. Now, if I do loot a Mythic Entumbra, that means that I have both an orb and an Entumbra. My next buy, hands down, is going to be a Kabbalah's Hymnal, and I will be using this heroic token on it to make it at a heroic eye level. Obviously, yes, Mythic is worth more value, but you can see pound for pound, a Mythic Entumbra is stronger than a Mythic Hymnal, looking at the DPS comparison here and the offhands that we have, you know, in place here versus here. It will vary for everyone, but if you're trying to like really truly min-max things and want to save as many dinars as possible, Castle Nathria is next week. You can run LFR, normal, heroic, and mythic if you can kill the boss, and maybe try and save that second or even third dinar. And then if you get super lucky, you can buy whatever you want, right? Because if you get 3 out of 4 items drop for you like that, I don't know, buy a Scar Trinket, buy something like that. But it's important to keep in mind as well that they have changed the Great Vault so you can get items from any raid in the raid slot. So there's a bit of RNG in it. If you want to like min-max things, run your time walking this week, try and get that item. You can wait for Nathria next week, make an LFR group and try and have somebody trade it to you. Maybe you'll get lucky too, but a lot of min-maxing at hand. But TLDR, and Entumbra still cranks, Hymno still cranks, Orb still cranks as well, but Grenade's not too far behind either. So yeah, thanks for watching, guys. That about wraps it up. I hope this video wasn't too long or too rambly. It might have seemed like it in certain spots, but the thing is, there's a lot of intricacies when it comes to like Sims and Dinars and min-maxing heroic tokens and mythic tokens, and honestly, it also just comes down to your RNG. If you loot an orb, if you loot an Entumbra or a Hymnal or whatever, you can buy something else, and it depends what you want. There are a few items like 1, 2, 3, 4, but past the Entumbra, the Hymnal, the Orb, and like the Forbidden Truth, you can sort of just buy what you want. If you're trying it truly min-max, and you get everything you drop, dude, why don't you just buy a token or a trinket? It's good for leveling, because hey, we're probably leveling in about 2.5 months here if this leaked Dragonflight release date is on point. I'm memeing a little bit, but at the same time, I guess we will see. So once again, I want to emphasize it's very, very important to run your own Sims here, because the differences we saw, the disparity between like Shadowed Orb and Grenade was huge in the Sims for me for demo, and all that changed was one mastery ring going to a heavy crit ring. So it's important to run your own Sims, but like I said for the 10th time, Grenade getting this large of a buff means that there is a good unused trinket in a dungeon. Hook is fine, Grenade is better. You can farm it until you get an orb. If you already got an orb, well, hey, you know, congratulations, Giga. So thanks for watching, guys. If you have any questions, drop them down below in the comment section. I'll be sure to get back to you, or if you think I missed something in the video, also put it down there, and yeah, I will be sure to take a look. Once again, any week auras or profiles, add-ons on this video, links to my Twitch down below where you can grab them for free. I stream 5 to 6 days a week there. If you want to swing by and just hang out, also feel free to do so. And I also want to give one huge shout out to my patrons. Thank you guys a million times for all support on Patreon. Really appreciate it. If you're looking at supporting on Patreon, there should be a link up here as well as down in the video description below. And yeah, with that being said, thanks for watching, guys, and I will catch you all again soon on stream, hopefully in Dragonflight Alpha with some more Warlock stuff soon. Peace.